when you're trying to decide what you're going to do with your business, there's a lot of business decisions you got to make. But you can't really, in my opinion, you can't really run your business if you don't know what's going on the inside. And that's really the dynamic part about Jarvis, is that you get to see every little piece of your business, that whatever you can get out of each individual software, that you can get it in Jarvis. So when I use it, I really use it a lot for looking at trends, looking at, if I have a problem in the practice, to say, okay, compare them versus my other practices. I look at them to be able to tell what's working, what's not working. So there's a multitude of things that you can use it for, but really to have it all in one place is the beautiful thing, that I only have to go to one software. I can do anything I need to do in that software, and I don't have to zoom around in different multiple softwares and pay multiple expenses to be able to get the information I need. I used to be with a really, really big DSO, and at that point we spent a lot of money on IT. So unbelievable amount of money in data warehousing, people doing the BI. Just the costs were just astronomical to be able to have a data platform in the background. So when I started this DSO up, I wanted to make sure that I was doing something that was very economical as well as powerful. So I looked at the different options. I looked at the Dentrix Enterprises, and then I looked at all the different softwares, the competition. And really, I took a deep dive into quite a few of them, and I tried them out. So when I got hooked up with Jarvis, it really was like light years beyond everything that was out there. That I even talked to other CEOs of DSOs that were using like Dentrix Enterprise, and they even built their own data warehouse on top of Dentrix Enterprise because it didn't give them what they wanted. So for me, it was really, it became an easy decision, but it was one of the biggest decisions I had to make, because I also had the decision to say, okay, what software do I want to be on? So when you're acquiring practices, anyone who's done it, that when you have to do a software conversion, it is just bad, right? So there's nothing good about it. That employees hate it. It's definitely not a good first impression if you do it anytime soon after you've acquired the practice. So the practice hates it. Definitely your AR is affected. So I have never done a conversion where we haven't had a problem with the AR transferring, and then the balances get lost or they get reset to zero, and then patients aren't getting their bills. So they're upset because you hit them later with old bills. So with all that said, that I could kind of kill all those birds with one stone with Jarvis, because I can plug it into any software my practices have when I buy them, and then I don't have any disruption for them. Part of my acquisition process is that I use Jarvis as part of the due diligence. So in the old days, we used to go spend, a weekend in a doctor's dental practice software, just poking around, looking at everything, trying to gain all the data, running reports, and we'd have this thick of reports that we'd have to take home and dissect and understand it. And so today we don't have to do that. We actually plug this in as soon as we sign the LOI, and we use the software really to do all of our due diligence, and everything we need is in there. And if there happened to be something that, hey, we found something in Jarvis that doesn't look like, then we can get with the doctor and say, okay, we need to remote in and check this out because something's not jiving. But, all of those things combined is just, you can't really get that anywhere. And that's a huge benefit of being on that Jarvis platform. Depending on what type of DSO you do or how well you use data analytics, we actually focus on the collection part of the business. So our top line revenue is collection, it's not production. So a lot of times companies, they're very production, but then sometimes you forget about collecting. So you have these big gaps between production and collection. So for me and the rest of the team, we're very focused on not only that production number, but also how much we're collecting. And, we shoot for a target that we want to be very close to 100% and close as you can. And this gives us ease and access to be able to say, what are the adjustments? If we're having adjustments, you can see bad debt write-offs. You can see any production adjustments maybe happening by the practices that we're unaware of, courtesy discounts, things like that. All of those things are kind of front and center, which if you don't have a platform to bring that to you, it's very hard to be in a central management position and to be able to see all those things that may be going on in a practice. data is king in our business, that if you're not looking at what's going on, then you're blind. From what we find, there's a huge gap on where you should be. Should be at 95, 96% of copay collections, but most practices are at 70 or 65. So, when you're not collecting from the patient up front, it's hard to collect it on the back end. So there's just like little things that can come out from the KPIs, or, the difference between production and collections. That's an easy ratio to do. Your trends on new patients, to say, okay, what's happening with new patients? To be able to look into that, to say, okay, what are you doing on new patients? They're coming in, but we're not doing any production on them. They're coming in for one visit. Maybe we're giving them an antibiotic or something. They're never coming back. You can see all those type of things. On top of it, you say, okay, are we having new patients return? So all of those things are things that is so deep in the weeds that it's hard to understand not having that. To me, I couldn't live without it. But when you're in the thick of things and you don't have this data, you don't realize that there's so many things there that could help you really enhance your business. There's all things like, we look at how many sealants a hygienist are doing, or what's their period of prophy ratio, how many kids are coming back for their cleanings, how many adults are coming back for the cleanings, how many perio patients are coming back for their cleanings. Well, you can look at doctor production per exam. You can look at their close ratio. So how many treatment plans are presented and how many are closed. So there isn't a part of your business that you can't look at and understand like what's wrong. And, when you have a group, it's even better because you can compare and contrast. So if I just had one practice, like I wouldn't know, are they good or bad? If you only have one practice, you really don't know what to compare against. But when you have multiple practices, I line them up and say, okay, how's everyone doing compared to each other? Where are my opportunities? Where am I good? Where am I bad? And that's the beauty of having, a DSO and having multiple locations, that you can use them to bounce off each other. So you can tell, where are my opportunities to get better, and where am I doing great? I would say the biggest is hygiene visits. We have an asset there that people keep coming back, and that's for their 6-month cleaning. The problem is, over history of dental practices, they don't do a good job retaining, because if you have, let's say, 2 hygienists, they probably have 2 hygienists 5 years from now. And so that means there's a whole group of patients that, between your new patient and existing patient, they don't have room for them. So they fill up their schedules and every day they go. But at the same point, they're not inviting back their customers. Not only have we made it simple that we can see the trends of the hygiene patient visits, but we can click a button and show all the patients that didn't come back. So it's as easy as that we know not only the patients that weren't back in the practice, but you can click a button and see who they are, so we can call them and get them back in the practice. So for me, I think that you have to try to retain 85, 90% of your patients in the hygiene program. And to me, that was invaluable. That was huge when I was doing my due diligence on the different competitors with Jarvis, that most everyone was very inflexible. So they were kind of like, this is what you get. This is, we can't stray from there. You can't download this. You can't, it was a very closed box. And I just can't live in a closed box, right? Because our businesses are always changing. They're growing, things, trends are changing. So, I had a ton of support, and I currently do, on when I have to change a definition or I'm looking at things different. And just today, I sent a request in because there's a certain report that I wanted to compare it year over year. And we have that on other reports, and we don't have it on that report. We just need a slider to say, okay, compare these numbers year over year. And I got an email right back and said, I just want to make sure you're clear that, you want to take all these numbers and show last year's numbers for the same thing. And they said, we're working on it. We'll get right back to you and have it done. So, it's things like that other companies just don't offer. They don't want to go outside their box. But I think Jarvis is very, customer friendly, that they want you to have the tools to win, not the tools they think you should have to win. And I think that's a huge distinction. Number one, knowing what's going on. So, we had no idea how many patients were going to show up. We didn't know how to staff. We had all of these things that were just up in the air. So, being able for us, we tracked throughout the whole month, the month and a half that we were off, that we were tracking, how many people are in the practice. We were tracking on how much production, how much collections we were doing. So we can anticipate, what cash flow would look like at the end of the month, because obviously we were doing very little compared to what we used to do. So when we came back, we had already kind of pre-planned to know all the patients that we had to move out of April and then move into May and subsequent months. So we had a really good plan of looking at those schedules and be able to look forward to make sure our schedules are full, be able to do the confirmations and make sure that's in place. And even a bigger one that you don't think about on the practice level, but I've been talking to tons of banks, right? Because your banks are wanting to know what's going on in your business. We're trying to secure debt for growth and things like that. So they're wanting really good statistics. And they're wanting to know, how much are you doing? What are you going to do in May, and what are you going to do in June, and what's your schedule? So if I didn't have that tool, it'd all be just a complete guess, right? Because there's no way I could estimate that unless I had it right at my fingertips. So, those type of things for me, having not an educated guess, but actually having actual facts, that just not only it helps us make good decisions, but it also, I think it really makes us look good in the light of bankers and things that are relying on what we're saying as being true and not just a guess. Hi, I'm Keith Miller. I'm the CEO of Partnerships for Dentists. I'm very proud to say that our organization is powered by Jarvis Analytics.